My name is Dr. Lewis Woods. A couple of things, the two major research areas that I'm currently working on. The first is a revision of the dissertation into the book manuscript. It's tentatively entitled "From Seagoing to Domestic to Enlisted Sailor." Basically, what I'm looking at the USS Mason. It's the first ship in World War II history where African Americans get an opportunity to serve in the Navy beyond mess attendant, which is basically a seagoing domestic, right? They iron, they cook, they clean, etc. But what I want to do is to use the Mason as a vehicle to examine many other aspects of American history. For example, the transforming policy of the Navy later in the war, from initially excluding African Americans beyond mess attendants and stevedores to one where about 1,000 African Americans get an opportunity to fight beyond mess attendants. And I want to look at the civil rights activism of people like A. Philip Randolph and Walter White, the president of the NAACP in the 1940s. They advocated very, very strongly against defense industry segregation and discrimination, and also wanting more opportunities for African Americans to fight in the military. I look at the ship's record itself, the naval record of the ship as well, and then opportunities that they had abroad and encounters, differing encounters of race relations abroad. So, for example, they go to Belfast, Ireland, to Falmouth, England, to Oran, Algeria, and it gives an opportunity to see how a predominantly African American crew, right, of enlisted sailors, how they're treated abroad. So you get an understanding of race relations in the United States, but also race relations in North Africa and in England and Ireland. And then I want to look at, I kind of try to understand what it's like for these guys to re-immerse themselves into the post-war society, and basically how they were able to access the GI Bill, specifically housing, aspects of affordable housing, and to some degree their educational opportunities. So that's the book manuscript, and kind of as a offshoot, I'm working on a couple of articles as well. The first one, Discriminating Deeds, which really focuses largely on racially restrictive covenants and how those covenants undermine these African American veterans' opportunity to take advantage of the suburban housing boom that's happening in the post-war era. And for example, Levittown, there's one in New York, there's one in Pennsylvania, there's one in Puerto Rico, there's one in a couple. William Levitt is the largest private home builder in the United States, and every one of Levittown's communities, these post-war veteran communities, contain restrictive covenants in them. And restrictive covenants basically say no non-white will ever own, occupy, rent, even be able to live on the premises, with the exception of being in a servant capacity. So if you're a domestic or you're a driver, you can be on the premises, but you can't own it. And so these covenants were used in all the Levitt hometowns, and this is just one example. Levittown suburb, just one example. But there are many, many racially restrictive covenants are national in scope. And the second article, which is entitled "The Government-Sponsored Ghetto," which basically deals with redlining and how, again, how African American veterans, how challenging it was for them to access mortgage lending and to access home financing. And so the redlining that they experience really, it makes them much less likely to get beyond or own a home and get into, take advantage of the post-war the access of the GI Bill, which really, as an institution, it transforms American society, right? I mean, it makes it establishes the middle class as we know it. And so for me, the GI Bill is a really crucial moment in American history because it showcases, it gives people free education and affordable housing, which has transformative generational implications, as you can imagine. Unfortunately, the GI Bill was not equitably accessed by all veterans. Over 1 million African Americans fight in World War II. I was looking at a document in the NAACP records, for example, that estimated that by 1955, less than 30,000 African Americans were able to access their GI Bill housing component, the housing component of the GI Bill. So 30,000 out of 1 million, a decade after the war. So this is what, in essence, what those two articles are looking at. I don't differentiate them when I think about, restrictive covenants are happening while redlining is happening, but in terms of making it a manageable project, I try to segregate restrictive covenants and redlining, but the processes are happening simultaneously. And so African Americans are denied access to the suburbs and also denied access to owning a home in urban centers as well. Those are basically the research projects I'm working on.